read all these books about success, and I have to admit, they were very one-sided. These books about positive thinking
Mhm.
and dream big and cut the rope and everything's gonna work out. And I kind of believe in the one-sided story. So when I started my first company, my video production company, I I didn't have a plan B. I didn't think that things would be so hard. It was actually really hard. We
Yeah.
did.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Executive Health and Life. I'm your host, Julian Hayes II. And as I always like to say, I'm here with another fascinating guest because everyone is fascinating that I talk to. Now, there's an unsexy truth about success. It often hides in the dark. You can't see it, it's in the shadows. Most people only get to see the light. They'll see the high valuations, the record setting quarters, the accolades, and many other sort of material items. However, what most don't see is the struggles, the doubts, the numerous sacrifices, the humbling moments, the naysayers, the people closest to you sometimes saying, well, do something else, all that stuff. They won't see none of that. That's required to reach that particular moment that you're seeing in the light. So with success comes responsibilities, expectations, pressure, accumulation of stress, and oftentimes missing out on events and sometimes disappointing people. But that's the sacrifice and the gift of being a leader, of being a top performer, of being a separator. In these types of roles, you must perform every day and every hour. And my guest today is someone who is world class in the arena of productivity and performance. He's worked with over 300 plus companies and has spoken in more than 30 countries to date. And if that's not enough, he's an author and he's the host of Productivity Mastery. I am speaking with none other than Stoyan Yankov. How's it going today, man?
Really good, man. Thank you for the fabulous introduction. I hope I live up to what you.
Well, I appreciate that. Most importantly, was that pronunciation remotely close?
I think you hit around 80%
Okay.
accurateness. So almost
Okay.
there, almost there.
Okay. All right. In a few more months, and like I said, in case we meet in person, it will be 100%, and I will be having a basic conversation with the native.
I will insist on it,
All
my
right.
friend.
All right. All right. So I want to go back to that small town in Bulgaria that you grew up from. It's called Sliven. That's probably not, is that 80% as well?
That was 85. That was
85?
85.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going back there. It's a small
Mhm.
town. I want to know, what are 2 to 3 lessons that were instrumental in developing who you are today from growing up there?
Sliven, man. Sliven is a great town. So it's a town that was back in the time where Bulgaria was under Ottoman rule. Sliven was one of these fighters' places, like where the rebels were gathering and organizing this kind of rebellions, and so there's a lot of spirit in this town. I was born and raised by two. My parents are teachers, both of them, and they grew up in times of communism. And there's a lot of things we can discuss about communism, but there's also some good things that come out of it. For example, consistency, appreciation of hard work, appreciation of education. And as I said, my parents were teachers. So in my family, education was a very high priority. Hard work was very high priority. So I remember when I was growing up, almost every weekend we'll go to the countryside where my grandma was living, and we'll do a lot of farming work, like literally every weekend, right? In the summers, like, and I don't think it was so much about helping my grandparents, but I think it was more about my parents wanting to teach me and my brother to the importance of showing up and being consistent and working hard. So all these kind of fundamental values, I acquired them from the environment, from my parents, from everybody else. We were not a rich family. Nobody was rich at this time. In the 90s in Bulgaria, post-communistic environment, like at the end of the 80s, we gained our so-called independence from communism and started being a democratic country, right? So it was kind of like a jungle. Everybody was trying to figure it out. So 90s was this kind of a time of change. We didn't know as kids, but there were, as I said, a lot of these principles, philosophies, values that the kids of the 90s happened to acquire due to the environment they grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm curious about that. Always to hear, especially from countries that were under communism for a while, is that, in the States, we are notoriously known for being a highly individualistic country, right? We value that. You get pats on the back. It's good stuff too. But there, a lot of times in those communities, it's like you said, everyone's the same, and there's a consistency to go about that. So you may not have noticed as much since you grew up after, but maybe perhaps did you talk to people and then notice that like it was harder for certain people to break out of the mold and to do things differently compared to everyone else? It's almost like not even having to be an entrepreneur, but that's part of the spirit of just being independent and thinking for yourself and being different. So was that something that was hard for you to do?
Yeah. So a couple of points here. First of all, you mentioned you guys are very individualistic. I would say community is very strong in this post-communistic Eastern European country. So family, relatives, community, they always come together. You always have somebody to have your back, right? Like this is something that's very ingrained in our culture, which is very nice. I didn't know it by the time, but you can always rely on people, your relatives, your family. So that's a really nice thing. At the same time, we did not have any role models. Talking about entrepreneurship, talking about success, we can look at, you put on the TV, you put on the news, you see these American success stories, right? Mm-hmm. The Bill Gates in the 90s, those kind of guys. And you can see some role models, but it was a little bit too far, right? Like you don't see the guy next door because nobody had capital. Nobody knew how to do business. And I would say probably we had some other limiting beliefs, right? In terms of dreaming big. Mm-hmm. Becoming rich was connected to, if somebody is rich, they're probably a criminal. Like there was some of these kind of a societal understandings of how the world works, and you grew up with them in Eastern Europe. So you have to break through, and it's more about the mindset. You have to acquire more abundant mindset if you want to go out and achieve something. Now, we did have a lot of role models when it comes to sports. Mm-hmm. Bulgarians were doing really well in sports in the 70s and 80s. In the 90s, we became number 4 in the world in football, what you guys call soccer. Actually, in the US, the World Cup was in the US. So we did have some successes when it comes to sports, for example, when it comes to science, when it comes to, I don't know, mathematicians and, people studying and showing up and being really good at that, but not really when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, at least not in the 50 years of communism. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I'm really happy to see that now in 2023, there's a lot of more success stories. Last year, we had our first, and I know we're a little bit late in the game, but we had our first unicorn company coming out of Bulgaria. So slowly but consistently, things are changing for the positive.
No, that's awesome to see. And you mentioned business, and then you mentioned role models. And then I also see, this is just a random question here. I saw that you wanted to be a Wall Street banker. So, being, from the States, everything's usually a reference of entertainment and pop culture. So I was like, maybe he had inspiration from the movie Wall Street. Now, I don't know if you've seen this movie. Gordon Gekko, was that part of your inspiration?
I mean, Yes and no. I think it's actually a good guess. I did watch the movie. I love the movie. So it was. I mean, I wasn't really happy with the greed is good, right? Like it wasn't what I was after. But indeed, I was watching the movie. It was a movie I really admired at the time, and maybe it gave me a glimpse of what could be possible if you decide to be a banker. And I loved mathematics, right? I'm a very much of a problem solver kind of person. So I love the fact that from elementary school, from like I would go to all the kids will play. I'll solve mathematical problems, right? So then I did a high school of mathematics, and then um, when I decided to study in university, I had this dilemma: should I go for studying to be an actor because I loved acting and theater, or should I go and study to be a finance guy and become a banker? So at the end, I decided to go for the banking, for the more secure choice. That was what I was thinking. But then you never know where the life is going to take you.
I can relate to that in terms of taking in terms of being split between two paths. Now, I had a very, 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 very brief acting career. It was very brief, so brief that if you closed your eyes, it already passed you by. Right. I was part of a talent agency, and I got to do a few acting gigs, but I was probably what we have: A-listers, B-listers. I don't know if they're C-listers, but I was probably a D-lister in terms of my skills, not an F-lister. So because I could play at least one role, right? I could play at least one role good. But I remember this one time. This is when I knew acting wasn't for me. I need to play this military guy. It's like, hey, you're a little, you got broad shoulders and everything. I need you to be this mean military guy, right? And so I had to go up to the woman and start yelling and stuff. And I go up to do it, and I just start laughing, because I had to be this verbal abusive guy, right? Just yelling at her. And my voice doesn't carry like that. And so I just left. I just told the guy, hey, man, I'm not going to waste your time with this audition. This ain't for me. And so that was part of the end. I got to do a few other commercials, but after that, I was just, that was it, of my short acting career. But it was fun while it lasted. But I like the people in that industry because they're super creative. The energy is so good with people. And the reason why, we're talking about this in my delisting acting and commercial careers, because you were also, before what you're doing now, you were a movie and video producer, which is random that you did that before this, but that's how life works. So what's the story with being the movie and video producer?
And you used the word random. If you follow closely, it's probably not random. Just like you, I was fascinated with acting. I wasn't a good actor. I don't know if I was a D-lister or an F-lister. I was definitely not a good actor. I have a lot of energy back at the time, and I did different courses, acting classes, right? And then at some point, I understood I'm much better behind the camera than in front of the camera. So every time we'll go and record a little video or short film with my friends from the acting classes. I'll be the one organizing everything, bringing everybody together, coming up with ideas. And then at some point somebody said, dude, you should become a producer. What's a producer? This is what you do, man. This is what you do now. You bring everybody together, you organize everything, you do the budgets. So I don't know, man. And I think maybe people listening, they should maybe also pay close attention now and ask themselves this question. What are my strengths? What are the things that I'm passionate about, that I'm naturally gifted in? When I do these things, they just come natural. And I always like to invite people to see themselves as not just as the one thing that they studied or they have an experience at, which was my story. I don't know about you, Julian. For me was, I studied finance. I'm a finance guy. I need to do banking. And then there was this revelation at some point, which was like, wait a second. I am a finance guy, but I'm also really good in networking and bringing people together. I understand event management. I'm fascinated by movies. I understand acting and storytelling. Interesting. Okay, what else? I come from Eastern Europe. Okay, maybe there might be some limitations, but we can do things on a budget, right? Like
Right.
we're really good into surviving and being effective. What else? I'm really good in maths and solving problems. Good. I love spreadsheets. Okay, cool. What can I do with it? Maybe you listening, you can also think about this yourself. Maybe you see yourself as this one-dimensional human being, but you're a lot more than that.
Absolutely.
What if you take a piece of paper right now, today, and spend 15 minutes writing down what are all my strengths? Sometimes I take them for granted, but what are all my strengths? What are my passions? What are the things that I enjoy doing? Maybe I'm not so good at everything, but I enjoy it. I'm really like you and me as actors. I enjoyed being an actor. That was really bad, right? but what are the resources? I have a great network in the Nordics. I have a great network in Eastern Europe. What else? What are my assets and resources? So have a look at all these things and try and see yourself as a package. Like there's this ikigai kind of framework, right? How can I? What am I good at? What are my strengths? What was the other one? What the world needs? How can I create value, right? And then maybe, just maybe, you can find your path into, providing value to the marketplace, if you may say it that way, either working for a company or running your own thing. But being unique. I mean, you're a podcaster, right? But you're not just a podcaster.
Yeah.
You're very special in your way, the way you host, the way you research. I mean, nobody before researched how my name is being pronounced. You're taking care of details. You're meticulous. You're a very kind person, right? Like there's a lot of these features. You're not just a podcaster. You're unique.
Yeah, and I think that right there is how the process of how someone could go about designing their life, designing their career, and also reinventing themselves. Because a lot of people, we always have to reinvent ourselves constantly. I think about even in business right now, like how many different iterations that I've had of my company. Even this podcast name has changed because I've changed, and the podcast has to reflect that. And it's this constant questioning, it's this constant refinement of learning about yourself, asking yourself these questions. Because I did the same thing. There's a certain few things that I'm pretty good at that can be translated to other domains. And you combine those things, and that's how you become unique. So even I think about someone who's running a company or someone who is looking to, like you mentioned, offer their services to the marketplace. They may offer, let's say they offer sales, right? Somebody that's offering some type of sales training or something, right? Everybody offers. There's a lot of sales trainers out there, but what makes you unique? It's just you, yourself, your personality. And the secret there, or the key then, is to figure out how to get that on display that makes you unique out there and makes you stand out. Because then there is no competition. There's just you. And so I really like that point there where you mentioned that. I have to say, though, one more thing about the movie and video producing, because I actually think the ability to storytell is so critical, not even just from a business perspective, but I even think like from a personal perspective. And what I mean by this is that how we talk to ourselves is probably the most important relationship that we'll have in our life, because it's going to stop us or it's going to propel us to go do things that we really want to do. And so for me, I had to work on my storytelling skills of how certain events happened to me in life and reframe those stories to something empowering. And so how have you used storytelling in terms of your professional career now, of what you're doing now?
Man, I can relate so much to what you're saying. I don't know, when did you start to try and reframe your personal storytelling? But for me, probably it was attending one of these Tony Robbins seminars like 10 years ago. And that was a big shift for me in terms of, at the time I was already creating stories and videos and using the storytelling to produce videos for my clients. but you're right. It's about what are the stories that are running my life and my business, and are these stories empowering me, or are they limiting me in certain ways? And I love what you said about the podcast, that it's evolving. We need to be constantly evolving, right? Like you learn, you have 50, 100, 150 episodes, and you're like, well, you learn, right? I shouldn't do that. I should do this. So yeah, I would say, how have I used storytelling? I mean, let me give you a perspective, and I think the key word is actually perspective. I've been producing hundreds and hundreds of videos and movies, and at some point there was this epiphany that came to me. It was, if I am a professional movie maker, a filmmaker, I'm required to show up on set and to have a carefully designed screenplay, right? You can't just show up and say, hey guys, let's shoot. No, you need to have a screenplay. You need to make sure everybody knows the screenplay really well. You need to break it down into a storyboard, a shot list, so everybody knows how it's going to be shot, and organize the production and find the equipment and get the right actors and get the right team. Good. So when we go on set and something breaks, we can easily get back on track. And I started asking myself, why are we not asking these questions in our personal lives? What if I was the producer of my own movie? What if I was the director of my own movie? And what if I was the main character, the protagonist of my own movie? Which you are, by the way. You're all of these things. And it's hard to be a producer, a director, a screenwriter, and a main character at the same time. It's hard. But what if you were that person? How do you want your story to continue from here? What are the kind of philosophies and mindsets that you want the main character of your movie to believe in? And think about this perspective. You know, we were talking about Mission Impossible before we started the podcast, which we're both fans of the franchise. Think about any compelling movie that you've watched. Usually, not always, but usually it starts with some sort of a dramatic moment, or you know, something happens to the main character, and they have to make a choice, and they have to embark on a journey to resolve something so they can achieve this goal. Slay the dragon, you know, the Lord of the Rings. We need to destroy the ring. Like there's this huge, unsurmountable goal that the maker has to achieve, right? But there's no story, there's no movie that's just like, here's one character, they watch some TV and they died. You know, it was fine. It was just fine. No, they go through tremendous challenges. And if you're in a bad place right now, or whenever you're in a bad place, it's just a reminder. Hey man, maybe you're aiming high. Maybe you're very ambitious. It's okay to be feeling down. Maybe this is just part of your journey. You're in a low point right now. Get back and zoom out, right? See the whole picture. Okay, 1 week, you're feeling down. That's okay. 1 month, you're feeling down. That's okay. As long as you show up and you do your very best towards the direction that you believe is the right direction. And by the way, you shouldn't have it all figured out. I don't know what's the percentage, but let's say a big percentage of characters in movies, they will shift the goal 1/3 down the line in the movie. So initially they think they should achieve that, but then they keep going and there's more stuff that gets revealed, and then they figure out, well, that's not what I want to do. Actually, I grew up as a character. I can see things more clear right now, so I have to go for this other thing. So if you're feeling confused, just think about it, right? If I was the main character of my movie, how would I act right now?
That's you know, really good points right there, especially the part about, you know, so I listened to one of the interviews about, they were talking about Mission Impossible 2, and they don't even have the ending complete it yet. They have different ideas for it, but they don't have it just set yet, and it's supposed to come out next year. You know, and so a lot of these times in movies, it's very last minute decisions that they do in terms of the ending and actually the finished movie itself. And you know, speaking on being the producer, the actor, and everything, I couldn't help but think of Rocky, and because Sly was all those things in the first Rocky movie, but then also more importantly, I have the bookmark on that story of how that movie was made and everything that he went through. And I frequently read that anytime, like you mentioned, that I do feel down or I do feel like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I have no idea. There's so many things. I don't know how I'm going to do this or not. The man had to sell his dog. His last prized possession, he had to sell his dog just to do that. Now, eventually he got the dog back. But, you know, all that he had to do for that movie, somebody offered him money. But he wasn't playing the role. And he's like, no, I'm supposed to play the role. This is my role as well. So, and he stood by that conviction. And I think that is so important, you know, in entrepreneurship and in startup culture to really stand by your convictions. And, you know, this is a great tie-in to kind of the first line you mentioned in your book is that as an entrepreneur, you live in the jungle and your main goal is to survive every day. When Sly was making that movie, he had to survive by any means necessary. You know, I'm sure you've had to do jobs that you didn't like to do to survive every day. Same thing here, right? And it didn't feel good. So speaking of that, I want to go into kind of what you're doing now and build up to that. What did you do in the early days to make sure that you were surviving in this jungle and that you were staying hydrated and getting some protein and some nourishment while you were still building up your speaking career?
So initially, I mean, again, I come from Bulgaria, man. So I'm used to doing a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I would do many different jobs while I was studying. At some point, I was working in a warehouse, and we were even joking with the other people working there because one of my friends working there, he would say, "Man, 80% of people working in the warehouse here in Denmark is master degree students and PhDs." Right? It's just so I would read all these books about success, and I have to admit, they were very one-sided. You know, these books about positive thinking and
Mm-hmm.
and dream big and cut the rope and everything's gonna work out. And I kind of believe in the one-sided story. So when I started my first company, my video production company, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't think that things would be so hard. It was actually really hard. We did make a lot of mistakes, and at some point, I can talk about it if you want. At some point, things went to a place that I was stuck. I didn't know where to go. Like we did some amazing projects. We were working with some great clients, but the way we set up the business, the way we even started with my business partner, we wanted this to be a side gig. It turned into a full-time thing. At some point, I realized we have a completely different way of seeing the world and wanting to operate the business and the vision and everything. So it was really hard, but then you poured your heart into it for 3-4 years, working 80, 90 hours weeks, right? So you don't want to let go. And you read all these books and they tell you never quit. So at some point, I had to just make a step and say, I need to get out of this, and I need to start doing what I really want to do. So this is the moment in which I started working in a hotel. I was 30 years old at the time, and I started working as a dishwasher in a Radisson hotel, and I would wash dishes for 2-3 days every week, and usually it's going to be night shifts. So you go and there is a banquet of I don't know, there's like 100, 1,000, 1,500 people having a party, and then we are 3 dishwashers and we need to take care of everything, and usually the party finishes at 2 or 3 o'clock, right? So you can imagine, and then the next day you have to wake up and you have to go to do a workshop, because you know I was teaching companies how to be successful, right?
Yeah.
So and look, the last 10 years, I would say I learned so much about the reality of the journey. And I think we need to talk more about what it really takes to build a successful company. You're podcasting, you're talking to some of the most successful people on the planet. And when you talk to these people, they'll tell you, man, it's not sunshine and roses. It's really hard. It's so much sacrifices. You miss the birthday of your best friend. You miss the wedding of somebody you care about. You're the last person in command. If something breaks, it's on you, the entrepreneur, that has to solve it, right?
Yeah, I think what I underestimated was, or I should say, I overestimated just having talent, and how far that can take you, and knowledge and skill, how far that can take you. I overestimated that part. And then I underestimated things like meeting people, just how important relationship building is. And also just how long things take. They take longer than, because in my head, I'm just like, okay, if you do this, do that, then it's going to work like that. And then, okay, in a few months, it'll be like that. And it's talking with people. It's almost like a rite of passage to have the first venture completely fail, and you have to pivot. And then sometimes the second and the third. It's most people I've talked to have had, they've either had a lot of credit card debt, or they have to almost been bankrupt. They've had to, I know some had to do food shelter, some have been homeless. So everyone has this dramatic event, this, it's all like a hero's journey, right? You start off, you get this call, this awakening. You're excited. You're ready to go. I'm going to take over the world. I'm going to change the world, right? You have this ambition, this excitement. And then as you go through the process, it starts to weigh you down. And you're like, man, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. This is not fun. And I think that's a very critical stage for me when I enter that, is that it's not that I've lost love for it. It's just that I've lost perspective, and I needed to look at the helicopter view again, the big picture of it. And also start talking to people and realize that this is a completely normal stage of it, right? You may feel like you're in no man's land, but that's the whole process of the journey. We won't see that on Instagram. We won't see a lot of books on that, because that's not exciting to say, hey, man, you might feel lonely. You might feel a little depressed. You might feel anxious. You might not take care of your health as good as you should, or you might lose a relationship. You're not going to get to party. You're going to miss most of your 30s or your 20s, whenever you start. All these things, right? And it's not to scare you, but it's to give you much more of a perspective. And so when people told me that, and I really learned about this, it's like the weight off my shoulders went off. I was like, okay, this is just part of the process. And if I just stick through it, continually refine, at some point it's going to work out, but it takes as long as it takes. And that's a lesson that I also apply when I'm out running all these miles, is that it takes as long as it takes.
Definitely, man. And maybe I'm going a little bit ahead of time, but it's not an accident that we placed purpose and values as the first letter from the acronym PERFORM. PERFORM is the methodology that I co-developed with the CEO of the leading startup acceleration program / VC fund in Europe called Startup Wise Guys. So PERFORM, the first letter stands for purpose and values. And this is where you want to start understanding, why do you do what you do? Because the challenge with me with the video production company was I did not know what is the why. Why do I want to do this? What is the purpose? How are we making the world a better place? How is this potential success going to make me happy in the future? For you, the founder, how is that going to make you happy? And how is that going to make the world a better place? Once you find that, and I can see that in everything you do, seeing you as an example, right? Maybe you keep refining. Maybe you will change the way you have your product offerings. Maybe you start making a B2B product thing, but you know why you do it. You wake up in the morning, you're excited to do it, right? I can see it in your eyes. And this is where you want to start. What excites you? What are you passionate about? Who are the people, when you serve them, it makes your day? What's your mission? What's your cause? Because when you know that, my accountant, by the way, I mentioned, he's even quoted in the book, accountant and purpose, right? Like that's the what, right? But if you go like, how did my accountant land me as a client? So I was looking for a new accountant in Denmark, and I'm like asking my friends, do you know anybody who's good? So they give me some names. So I checked this guy's webpage. The first thing I see on the webpage, it's a big sentence, and it says, I help small business owners to sleep better at night.
Oh, that's a pretty good line. That's very good.
I'm like, okay, that. I like this guy. Let's meet him. I meet the guy, and I'm like, man, I saw this. Man, I get so excited when somebody asks me a question, and I can help them, and I know that they can figure it out. I'm just getting so pumped, man. I love it, and the way he structured his product, like the way I'm paying him, he includes this free service, so to say, like part of the package. You can call him anytime or send him an email, and he calls it hotline, right? He will answer any question you have connected to administration and accounting. And let me give you an example. It's not just a nice sentence for the marketing. He has access to all my administration and everything, right? So he meets me once, and we have a cup of coffee, and he's like, I just wanted to see how are you doing, how's the business, how's everything. And by the way, I figured out that you changed your address. You moved to a new place, but you haven't changed your address in the system, your personal address. Do you want me to do that for you? I'm like, it's not his business. It's not his job. I didn't pay him for that. But he helps small business owners to sleep better at night. That's what excites him, right? And for those of you listening, try and ask yourself, why do you do what you do? When you know what's your why, when you know what's your mission, and you really committed to it, you're a lot more likely to inspire best talent to join your team, to inspire investors if you're looking for investment, to buy into your story, to inspire customers to come and buy from you and not from your competitors because you care. So that's the first part, right? Why do you do what you do?
Okay, let's go to the E real quick. And that's effective planning, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, this whole acronym, there's nothing unique in terms of each of the areas. And it's about, do you do these things? Common sense is not common practice, they say, right? So the second one, effective planning, it's more about, okay, how do you set goals? How do you set objectives? How do you plan and organize your time and resources in your team and in your company? How do you make sure that every person from the team is good in organizing their own time? Because when you become an owner, you need to set the goals for the company. You need to set your own goals, right? Personally, how do I contribute most to the company? And you're the one responsible for the team to deliver and to plan their own time. So you need to coach them as well. So there's a lot of great practices out there you can borrow, but truthfully, it's not about the method. It's about how do you make it simple and easy so you can consistently get back to planning. And I would hear that all the time, by the way. I do a workshop, and we'll share some strategies, we'll share some ideas for goal setting, and one person or two will raise their hand and they'll say, Stoyan, I love this method, it's great tool, but I don't have time to plan my time. I'm just so busy. Like you have no idea how busy we are in the company, and interesting. You don't have time to plan your time. Maybe, just maybe, you haven't planned your time. So now you're doing a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing at all. And you have no time for anything. What if you take a step back and ask yourself, how can I start prioritizing planning sessions? Right? And planning you always start with the end in mind. You always start in the long term, right? This is something corporates are much better at, by the way. Having structure around how do we plan?
Very true.
Yearly planning, quarterly planning, monthly planning, weekly planning, and so on. I mean, listen, if you don't spend time on a daily basis to organize your next day, you're missing out opportunities. I promise you. You might be working 14 hours or 12 hours. If you don't have 20 or 30 minutes per day in which you stop, you pause, and you just focus on, okay, step number one, let me review my day. We're going to finish recording the podcast, and this is something I have in my calendar, 30 minutes. I have a meeting with myself in which I'm going to review my day. I'm going to ask myself, what did I achieve today? What did I learn? What can I do better if I can relive my day once again? Okay, where's my team? What's the progress? What should we do better? Great. Now let me have a look at my next day. What's happening tomorrow? How can I make progress on my goals? How can I prioritize activities that will contribute to the success of myself and in the business? Okay, amazing, great. And I can talk a lot about that, how we can smartly organize our days. You let me know where you want to go, but it's consistency, man.
I will say, interject here real quick, is that as we're talking about this effective planning, and then that example you use of the guy who's just doing a lot of things, there's a book it's a very basic book. I mean, it's so basic that I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to go read it again because, excuse me, it's so basic, it's so easy that it's so easy to overlook. And that's the one thing. It's a very good book, but it's a very basic concept. But it's so easy to not do it because things come up, and even things at times that feel like they're important, or that you can do tasks, you can do work that feels like what you're doing is important. You can even apply this to someone's health as well. We're talking in a business performance sense here, but this applies to your health as well. That there's so many things that you could do that you end up doing them. It feels effective, but is it really effective? Is it really the one thing that you should be doing? The high yielding thing, the big rock of that. So, speaking on that, of the one thing, what's a way that helps you stay focused and fight off distractions and really truly focus on the one thing?
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, if you haven't read The One Thing, make sure to get a copy. It's a great book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. I had the pleasure to interview Jay on the podcast, on my podcast, Productivity Mastery. Julian, I'm going to connect you guys. You should definitely have him on this one as well.
That would be great.
So the whole book is organized around the question, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or necessary? Which, by the way, these two guys, the authors, they built, among many other businesses, one of the biggest real estate companies in the world with more than quarter million employees. So let's just start from there. So this is a business philosophy. It's not just too theoretical, guys, right? So make sure to get a copy first of all. Now, what do I do? Now, I do a lot of things. And I'm a creative guy. Not easy. How do I structure and how do I stay focused on what matters? First of all, OKRs is a really good methodology, even if you're not an entrepreneur, but you just want to structure your life. Objectives and key results. Go check it out. There's another great book called Measure What Matters by, I think, John Doerr, who implemented OKRs in Google. And even though they were invented, I think, in IBM in the 80s, they become really popular in the early 2000s. And now, I work with hundreds of startup companies, with corporates. It's a very widely used methodology. You can go check it out. You have to adapt it to what works for you. For some of you, it might be too early to adopt them super properly, right? But it works. The important thing is you set clearly defined goals or directions, and ideally you have top 3 goals, right? Objectives in the sense of OKRs. Now, once you have goals, objectives, whatever kind of methodology you use, I would recommend everybody, and not many people do that, I would recommend everybody to identify what your top 3 priorities are in the business. Now, what does priority mean? What are the kind of activities that when I do them, they contribute most to the success of the business at the moment? You can be an entrepreneur, you can be a manager, you can be an employee. What are the top 3 priorities for you, at the moment? For example, in my case, it could be attracting new clients for the business. That could be one priority. Another priority could be coaching and developing my team. Another priority could be delivering speeches and workshops at the highest level, making customers happy. Okay, 3 priorities, right? You identify the priorities, and then you ask yourself this question: what percentage of my time and energy goes towards making progress on these top 3 priorities? And you have to be really honest with yourself. And then you ask yourself, in the perfect world, what percentage of my time and energy is going to go towards these top 3 priorities? Okay, I'm at 10%, I want to be at 60. Interesting. How do I get there? What do I have to start saying no to? And I don't know about you, but from my experience, speaking to some of the most successful people on the planet, interviewing them, having the chance to work with them, they're more of no people. Everybody's talking about yes, you have to be a yes man, and I see the point in it, but really these people are no by default.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. It's really hard to get them to do something, right?
Very intentional. Very intentional.
Very intentional. They know what they're after.
Mm-hmm.
They're not so much smarter than you usually, but they're really consistent. This is the 1, 2, 3 things that are most important at the moment. And that's how I organize my day. It's like, all right, what are the goals? What are the priorities? Now, how do I make sure that I make progress on these things? So I'm doing a weekly planning with myself. So I make a cup of coffee and I spend an hour or 2. I review my previous week, and then I set the objectives for the next week. Now, based on these objectives, it's weekly. I can start kind of looking into my calendar and say, well, Tuesday I'm going to spend half a day to do this if it's a bigger project. So I start kind of resolving the puzzle. But then on a daily basis, I have a process. It's also in the book. It's called the Perform Planning Methods. Very much inspired by many successful methodology, GTD by David Allen. Tim Ferriss has a lot of good teachings. Tony Robbins had a great system, Time of Your Life, the RPM method. So go check them out. But what I do is I try to create a smart to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Like initially, I used to just make a big list of unrelated things, and then the next day I wake up and I start checking them off. Right? Not a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
What you want to do, and you mentioned the word intentional. What you want to do is you want to be intentional about what you spend your time on. What does that mean? You have to identify what's the end result of your actions. David Allen, I'm going to mention him again, the author of Getting Things Done, GTD. He told me, I interviewed him on the podcast as well. He told me, Stoyan, the outcomes and actions are the zeros and ones of productivity. The challenge is, the problem is most people start with the action. Tomorrow I'm going to do sales. Okay, what does that mean? You can say I'm doing sales for 14 hours. What is your measurable objective? What is your result? What is the outcome you're after, right? Because if you say I'm going to call 27 potential customers, that's measurable. That's an outcome. And if you say that and then you organize it backwards and say, how do I do that? How do I get there? I had a client once, coaching client. He's like, Stoyan, I want to be more productive. Okay. Start coaching him. We had a few sessions. And he calls me one day, man, I love these things you said about defining the outcome. I did this spreadsheet that you gave me the template for, and I organized my day based on the outcomes, the objectives that I want to achieve. And then I had a call with my sister, and I'm speaking to her, and she's younger than me, so she doesn't know what she's doing. So every time I talk to her, I start lecturing her, and then she gets annoyed, and we stop talking. and this time, because you asked me to define the outcomes, the intention of everything I do, I wrote on my spreadsheet, connect with my sister and make her feel understood and loved.
Mm-hmm.
So we started speaking, and I immediately start lecturing her what to do. And then, because my spreadsheet was open on the screen, I saw it. I'm like, am I achieving my outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Am I achieving my purpose? Not really. What can I do differently? So he started asking questions. He started listening. He started being understanding. Doesn't mean he agrees with her, but he's there for her. That's my outcome, right? It makes such a big difference. If you only make this one simple change, before you start doing something, you identify what's the end result of this something. There's so much, billions of dollars being lost on ineffective meetings.
Absolutely.
Because people we have a big meeting about marketing. Okay, what exactly do you want to get out of this meeting? We want to create a marketing plan. Okay, here's the marketing plan. How about we spend 5 minutes to discuss and move on? Oh, okay. We didn't need an hour and a half meeting, right? You want to go on a holiday. What's your outcome? Right? Because if you're 2 or 3 people going on a holiday together, maybe you want to talk about what are your intentions from this holiday before you get there. Because once you know the outcome, you can prioritize activities that will get you that outcome, not another outcome. And that's how I organize my day, man. I'm step number 1, I capture everything that's on my head.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. I look at the priorities, the goals, the projects, the meetings. I put everything down on a spreadsheet. You can do it on a piece of paper. Then I organize it in terms of, I group it together. All right. This is connected to sales. This is connected to my team. This is connected to my well-being. Okay, good. What's the actual outcome I want to produce tomorrow? Like, this morning I recorded like 10 videos with one of the people from my team, for LinkedIn. Okay, record 10 videos for LinkedIn. That's the outcome. And then how do I get this done? Right? So and then you build it backwards. And I'm very meticulous, you might say. So once I make this list with outcomes, I ask myself, what are the step-by-step to get there? Like, I want to make it simple and easy for me. And then I ask myself, how much time is everything going to cost me? And the word is cost me, right? I'm budgeting. If I spend an hour with you here in this podcast, I can't spend this hour anywhere else. I can't. It's done. This is a priority for me, right? I took a nap before the podcast. I prepared. I want to be here. I want to be with good energy. I want to give you the best of me, right? That's my outcome. I want to make Julian happy and his audience to get value from this podcast. That's my outcome. So this is it, man. And then the final step is scheduling or adding things, putting things in your calendar. You don't start with the calendar. Most people start with the calendar. No,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be intentional. Before I put anything in my calendar, I need to be 100% sure that this is going to move the needle. And again, this is a draft, I'll finish, 6 p.m. I'm done. I do my planning. Tomorrow morning, I wake up. There's 7 new things that will happen. Okay, cool. I have a plan. I can always change it. But I have a draft of my plan as opposed to just going with the flow. So that's how I organize my own time.
Man, I love that. And, when I listen to this again, I will probably take even more notes on that when I'm not focusing on questions and everything. So that was a very key block that I hope listeners go back and really take the time to execute. I know I am as well, because I'm looking. I need to stop freestyling so much with certain things. Let myself freestyle with certain aspects. But when it comes to that, I need to. This is something that I'm going to work on personally myself. One of the last few questions here is it's staying. I know this is a part of the concept from your new book that's coming out soon, but just as a preview so far of performing and staying productive in times of crisis. And crisis can mean different things to us, but nevertheless, what are kind of some things that you've learned so far about being able to perform in times of a crisis?
Yeah, so I'm working now on a book, as you said. It's called Performing Times of Crisis, same co-author, Cristobal Alonso. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I'm not an expert in this area, even though I've done a lot of emergency management, so to say, as a movie producer. But it's not that I've been running a huge company, corporation or something. So we do interview a lot of people who've been out there going through major crisis. I had a really great interview a couple of weeks ago with a strategy professor from Columbia Business School called Rita McGrath, and she used this really cool term. She said, in Hollywood, in movies, we always look at these leaders that in times of crisis, they get aggressive. And in reality, the best leaders are those that in times of crisis, and she said it really beautifully, they take the emotional temperature down. So this is probably the key thing. Initially, if you get hit with an emergency and it's really hard, you're the person that needs to be the one with the cool head, and you need to bring the emotional temperature down. Right? You don't have the luxury to go out there and to freak out and to point fingers at people. The former president of Starbucks contributed to the book as well. That was one of the major things as well. He said many leaders change when there is a crisis. They become the ones that start pointing fingers at people. You can't afford to do that. You need to be like, in times of crisis, you got to be the coolest person there. I can relate a lot because again, when you're a movie producer and you're on set, something breaks. No matter what, something's gonna break, right? And you have to put a smile on your face, and you have to go to the bathroom, take a few deep breaths. I don't know what you're gonna do,
right?
But it's your responsibility to remain calm and keep the focus of your people on the things that matter. Another thing really important: communication. Many leaders in times of a crisis, they don't want to talk about the bad news. And when you don't talk about things, people come up with stories.
Right.
So tell the truth. You got to tell the truth. Again, I'm getting back to Howard Behar, the former president of Starbucks. He mentioned, he shared the story. You guys, probably those of you listening, are familiar with Howard Schultz, number one guy in Starbucks. So Howard Behar was the number two guy, and he shared that there was this major crisis that happened to them. So he wakes up 3 a.m. from a phone call, and somebody calls him from the management team and says, "Howard, something really bad happened. Somebody got into Starbucks in one of the cities, and they shot 3 young employees, and they are dead. 3 of the employees of Starbucks are dead." And what do you do, right? He said, he was so impressed by the way that the other Howard handled the crisis. Because what do many people do? Oh, let me talk to my legal department. Let me do this thing. Let me be careful what I say because of what could happen. No, he went and he said, no, humans first. I need to go out there and I need to show up. So he gave a lot of interviews. He shared all the information. He set up calls. He talked to everybody from the company. Then he went and he visited the families of the people who were the victims' families. So I think And I've seen that many times on both sides, people doing it right and people doing it wrong. Show up and tell the truth. Doesn't mean you need to freak out, right? You need to go and say, to create more panic, but you have to say, guys, let me talk to you right now. Something major happened in our industry. This is what's happening right now. I'm going to keep you posted on all the news, all the updates. Currently, we're trying to resolve it. What we expect from you to do is this and that and that. If anybody needs to talk to me, come talk to me. We'll keep you posted. There might be that we need to do some cuts and do this and this and this. But don't worry about it. We'll keep you posted. We'll do our best to have your back.
Man, I love that story, and I love the emotional temperature. I love that concept. Can relate to that on so many fronts. I think this is a great stopping point. There's a bunch of other things that we could have talked about, but I think this is good. I'm sure when this book comes out, I'll have you on again, and we'll talk about that part of it. That part of it as well. But the last thing here is what has you most excited about right now? What are you most excited about?
Currently, I'm super excited about podcasting, man. It's both inviting and interviewing amazing people like yourself on my own podcast, Productivity Mastery, and being a guest and sharing thoughts on great podcasts like yours. So yeah, that's something that's really close to my heart these days. Other than that, building the team, innovating, trying to do different things so we can, my small team can grow and learn, and we can grow together. We can make an impact together. So speaking, traveling, doing speeches. So yeah, that's some of the things on my mind these days.
Very exciting stuff. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I said that was the last question, but I'm going to cheat. And so because you mentioned podcasting, so this is probably maybe a little difficult question, but if you could think of it just off the top of your head, what are maybe 1 to 2 big lessons that you've learned from being a podcaster and learning from your podcast guests so far? Because you've interviewed some big time, some major players, some major leaders from all different walks of life. So what are kind of 1 to 2 things off the top of your head that you've really learned from that?
2 things. Number 1, everybody's just a human being. You talk to these super highly successful legends, right?
Yeah.
The founder of Reebok.
Right.
Like some of these people, and everybody's just a human being, and they want to be treated as a human being, right? They're making mistakes. They've been lost and confused many times in their life. But if you treat them with care, if you treat them with respect, you can be friends with anybody. You can reach out to anybody. So don't be afraid to reach out to your role models. That's one. Number 2, everybody who loves to talk and to connect with people, you should start a podcast or a format similar to that, I would say. This is my favorite part of the week. I have a chance to connect with somebody, to exchange ideas, to ask them any question that I want. I mean, part of the reason I started the podcast is I want to have a platform or an excuse to invite people like yourself and other successful people, and I can pick your brain. I can connect with you. I can make,
Same here. Same here. That's the same reason. Yeah, that's the same reason. It's the same exact reason that I did this as well. It's just that it's a great, you call up someone, you email someone, hey, can I pick your brain for 45 to 60 minutes? No, I'm a little busy. No, thank you. Hey, can I interview you for the podcast for 45 to 60 minutes? Sure, absolutely. Right. And so it's the same exact thing. And so I'm like you, putting a little more thought and intentionality into it. At first, it was just, whatever, but I really enjoy it. So probably going to even do more of it just because it's a very good break in the day to do it. So,
and I just want to remind everybody who's listening to this podcast for the first time, go out to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, and the podcast is called Executive Health and Life. Make sure to subscribe, give this gentleman 5 stars, and make sure to share with a friend, because this guy's a legend. This guy's a legend. I mean, seriously, kudos for the preparation, kudos for your energy, for really doing it from your heart, man. I mean, you're a legend, man.
I appreciate it. I received that. I appreciate that. And you do a better job than me in terms of I forget to always ask for reviews. I really forget about that. So thank you for actually reminding me.
Give that man a review. Give that man a rating.
So this is a good, awesome conversation. Lastly, I have to ask, where can listeners keep up with you at, and also mention your podcast as well?
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, man. Well, look, my podcast is called Productivity Mastery. If you enjoyed this one, you might enjoy that one as well. Having great conversations with super successful and humble people like the gentleman in front of my eyes right now. So Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn, Instagram. We have a TikTok account as well, but like LinkedIn would be the best place. Just go check out, connect, write a little note, say that you listen to this podcast and you want to connect, and let's have a chat. Let's talk.
Awesome to hear. And listeners, as always, stay awesome, be limitless, and as always, go be the CEO of your health and your life. Peace.